Chris, set up the...
Well, thank you, Peter, and thank you to the entire J Street family for gathering here at this most urgent and consequential time. And I want to start by remembering the 3 brave American servicemen who were just killed in the war with Iran. They should still be with us today. And I want to thank J Street for the strong statements it's made against launching a war of choice. You've been crystal clear that that is not in American interests, and I would argue it's not in the interests of the people of Israel or the region or of the world. Peter, thank you for the warm introduction. I'm very grateful for Peter's friendship. We've had the opportunity to travel together to Israel and to the West Bank. I'm also very pleased to be joined here today by the real expert in the Van Hollen family on the Middle East, and that's my wife and partner, Catherine, who's with us somewhere here. And to your fearless, stalwart leader for so many years, a dear friend, Jeremy Ben-Ami. A friend of mine, a friend of Israel, a friend of the Palestinian people, a friend of peace. And that's why I want to thank all of you, the entire J Street team that works here in Washington and other places around the country, and indeed around the world, and to the entire J Street family. We need you more than ever. And I want to thank J Street for rooting its position in key principles and key unwavering values. In the principle of self-determination and democracy for the Jewish people in the state of Israel, and the principle of self-determination for the Palestinian people in a state of their own. And as Jeremy and many others have pointed out, that is the only long-term way of assuring democracy and human rights, self-determination for all people, and the long-term health and success of Israel, because under that scenario, you will see normalization of relations between Israel and other countries in the region and around the world, and that will be a true and enduring peace, not a constant state of conflict as we see today. But here we are at this moment when democracy and freedom are under attack right here at home. We have a lawless president who is undermining fundamental freedoms, freedom of speech, undermining principles in our Constitution, including the principle of due process. That is why I went to El Salvador after the Trump administration admitted that they had illegally deported him. But they sent him to a gulag in El Salvador that's notorious for human rights violations. But even after they admitted that they wrongfully and unconstitutionally deported him, they said he can stay and rot there. So yes, I went to El Salvador. I was able to call his wife that evening, Jennifer, and tell her that he was still alive. She had no idea where he'd been. But that was not about this one man. This was about the constitutional right of due process, one that was affirmed by the Supreme Court in a 9-0 decision, but which the Trump administration had tried to ignore. But they could not ignore people from around the country saying, we want to protect our Constitution. Thank all of you. And I want to thank the people of Minneapolis. The people of Minneapolis. Is there anyone from Minneapolis here? All right. Thank you for standing up against the lawless Trump ICE operation. Thank you for having those cameras to tell the truth when the Trump administration tried to tell us that the victims who were killed were in fact the domestic terrorists. Thank you for blowing the whistle on wrongdoing, both to protect your neighbor and to hold this lawless administration accountable. Thank you again to the people of Minneapolis for showing the way. Now, what we see is this lawlessness and attack on freedoms here at home, also infecting our foreign policy. If you look at the Trump administration's national security doctrine, you won't find references to democracy and human rights. The short version of it is might makes right, and an appeal to not the heritage of ideas, but literally to blood and soil. This is a very dangerous time if you listen to what Secretary Marco Rubio said in Munich. It was simply a sugar-coated echo of what J.D. Vance said in Europe at the Munich conference 1 year before. It was not an appeal to ideas of rule of law and democracy, human rights. It wasn't an appeal to that heritage of ideas that are rooted in the living Constitution of the United States. It was an appeal to blood and soil. It was a message against immigrants who are not part of the original immigrants to the United States or elsewhere in Europe. That's what it was all about. This is a very, very dangerous time for the United States and for the world. And of course, as we gather here, we are seeing the consequences of that illegal action, the sort of whatever Donald Trump says is his moral foundation is what is actually restraining all of us. Imagine that. You heard him say that. He was asked what contains his power. He said, well, it's what I think is right. This is a very dangerous moment when the President of the United States says that. And by the way, when Republicans in Congress give him a blank check to do that. Now, you've probably all seen in the last 24 hours all the videos circulating where Donald Trump and J.D. Vance promised they would keep the United States out of wars. They said it repeatedly. They were the pro-peace ticket. But as we speak, we know Donald Trump launched an illegal war of choice against Iran, a war for regime change, choosing to put American servicemen and women at risk for a war that he said he would never start. And now we've seen the first 3 Americans killed, and we've seen more Americans wounded. And I don't know what his policy is, that we're going to launch a war against every regime we hate. Yes, we hate the Iranian regime. It's been brutal against its own people. It's been a danger in the neighborhood. But I don't think you're going to help the Iranian people by launching bombs that kill civilians. We've seen over 140 school kids killed in one of the very first attacks of the war. That is not a way to bring solidarity and support from the people of Iran. And so what the president has done is made the world less safe for Americans. And of course, this was the president who tore up the agreement we had in place to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. In his first administration, he came in and he tore it up. Was it absolutely perfect? No. Would it have needed to be extended by now? Yes. But he tore it up. And by the way, all the evidence indicates, and these are notes released by one of the people who was present in the most recent discussions with the Omanis, that in fact, Iran was willing to go further than they had committed as part of the JCPOA. But that was never the goal. It's pretty clear that even as these discussions were going on, the decision had already been made to attack Iran. And in my view, if you look at the most recent reports, coming out of the White House and people who are collecting information, we know that Prime Minister Netanyahu met repeatedly with Donald Trump to push him to go into this war for his own political ambition. We now know that the Saudi Crown Prince, who was publicly saying, don't go to war, was lobbying behind the scenes. But we should not be sending America into war for the political ambitions of Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Saudi Crown Prince. We should not be doing that. And we have no idea where this is going to go. This is opening up Pandora's box. What we do know, and again from public reporting, is the CIA assessment indicated that the most likely scenario when you get rid of the supreme leader are that more radical elements of the IRG, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, take power. But we don't know. But what we do know is that President Trump put American lives at risk, and how we've lost American lives on this huge roll of the dice when he can't tell us really why this is in America's national interests. So the United States Congress should yesterday, but if not yesterday, tomorrow, come back and vote on the War Powers Resolution. Because this is an illegal war in two respects. One is a gross violation of international law, just to go haul off and attack another country. It was not a preemptory strike in the sense that there was an imminent attack on the United States. Don't believe a word of that. Just not true. There are some people who are trying to spin that now. And it also is a gross violation of the Constitution. This isn't a close call. This isn't like, the president launching a very narrow political strike against some entity and then coming to Congress to report. This was an all-out war that the president launched. And the Constitution is pretty clear. The framers did not want to give that power to one person alone. They were worried about exactly the kind of person that Donald Trump represents in the White House. And so that is why Congress and only Congress has the authority under the Constitution to declare war. And yet too many of our colleagues have essentially ignored entirely their constitutional responsibility. But we need to have a vote up or down on this. Americans are dying, and people need to be held accountable through their votes for this war of choice. Now, as I said, we have no idea what kind of fury that this will unleash over time throughout the region. But in my estimation, while we don't have a crystal ball, it's not likely to bring more stability. In fact, what we've already seen is that in response to the war, the Netanyahu government has shut off all the entry points into Gaza. They've stopped the flow of all humanitarian aid into Gaza. They've closed the Rafah crossing. We also know that as this war has been launched, we saw violent settlers under the protection of the IDF terrorize Palestinian villagers in Hawara. And as all of you know, this is just part of an ongoing pattern we've seen under the Netanyahu government. A pattern of violent settlers' attacks against Palestinians, pushing Palestinians off their land, destroying their orchards and their crops, all the time making room for more and more settlements, which, as you know, have mushroomed, both illegal settlements and legal settlements over the last year under this Netanyahu government. What we're watching, really, are the visions or nightmares of Smotrich and Ben Gvir being put into action. That's what we've been seeing from this Netanyahu government. We've seen that on the West Bank. We've heard their words about wanting to push all of the Palestinians off the West Bank. Smotrich and Ben Gvir said the same thing about just displacing Palestinians out of Gaza, want to send them to Somaliland. That's their vision. That's what they're trying to do. And now we have an American ambassador, Huckabee, who has become a mouthpiece for the Netanyahu government. Let's be clear that when he said it would be fine with him if Israel takes over not only the West Bank and Gaza, but many more lands in the Middle East, that would be fine with Huckabee. And not surprisingly, people like Ben Gvir and Smotrich said it would be fine with them too. We have a really good ambassador. I see him, Alan Solomon. He was our ambassador here. Good to see you, Alan. I just saw you. But let's be clear, this is ongoing as we speak. It was happening before the war in Iran. People will take advantage of the war in Iran to do even more, but it will keep on going until we collectively, working with people in Israel, Israelis and Palestinians, bring an end to it. And I do want to salute former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, who's here. I want to thank him for being a clear, both moral and strategic voice, recognizing that it's not in the interests of the people of Israel to continue down this Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben Gvir path. And it's not in the interest of the people of the United States to constantly see conflict in the Middle East and constantly be dragged into that conflict. So I also want to salute some folks that J Street recognizes how important they are, but I wish they got more recognition throughout the United States of America. In the Jewish community, in the not Jewish community, I'd like to see them get more recognition. Those are the human rights organizations in Israel. There are some courageous voices. Some of them are represented here today who at great sort of political sacrifice or cost to themselves sometimes are willing to speak out and tell the truth. They're the truth tellers, even at a time when people don't like to hear inconvenient truths. And I think we should make sure that we bring them here to the United States as often as we can, so that people can understand that these great voices for human rights are speaking out in Israel and saying things that Americans don't hear right here in the United States. But I want to thank J Street for helping bring them here. And I also want to salute the media in Israel, the newspapers, who are truth tellers despite the constant attacks on them, including attacks directly from Netanyahu and the Netanyahu government. And I don't want to get any of them in trouble. There are a number of those voices, both independent, but Haaretz has been a truth teller during this time. And we've seen what's happening here in the United States to media who are truth tellers. Those who are telling facts, the Trump administration goes after them. We've seen it time and time again. And the list is getting longer and longer. Arresting journalists, threatening journalists, threatening mergers of companies because the President of the United States doesn't like what somebody said or a joke a comedian made about them. This is a very dangerous time for our First Amendment here, and it's a dangerous time for truth tellers in Israel. So that's why I want to salute all of them collectively for being there. So where do we go from this very, very dark moment? Here in the United States, here in the Middle East, it is so important that here in the United States, we continue to stand up and speak out and protect our democracy in every way. Literally get in the way of what the Trump administration has been doing to take away our rights. Because bullies and authoritarian leaders, they all want one thing. They all want us to shut up, and they all want us to go away. And I know J Street is here to say, we're not going to shut up, and we're not going to go away. But we need to recognize that if we want to see the future that we want here in the United States, and if we want to see the future that J Street was formed to achieve, the vision they were formed to achieve in the Middle East, which is a secure and democratic homeland for the Jewish people in the state of Israel, and security and human rights and self-determination for the Palestinian people. We're going to have to work a lot harder because there are many, many people, very smart people, who would tell us it's already too late, who would tell us that the expansion of settlements has taken so much land that it's impossible to achieve. And we need to be honest with ourselves how difficult politically that will be to achieve. We have elections coming up in Israel. We'll have to see how those voices for the J Street vision play out. Just as we have elections coming up here in the United States in 2026 and beyond. And we need to make sure that those who are fighting for human rights and democracy in our Constitution prevail, even as we're witnessing attempts to literally rob the people of the United States of the election. So we have a lot of work to do, and in order to use America's influence to push things in the right direction in the Middle East, it is absolutely the case, as J Street has said, as I've said from the beginning, that you can't give the Netanyahu government a blank check to do whatever they want. You have to use what tools of American influence we have. You know, people say, criticize some people who say, well, we can't give a blank check to the Netanyahu government, it's anti-Israel. No, it's not. It's anti the policies of Netanyahu and Ben Gvir and Smotrich. That's what it is. I don't think anybody would ever tell me that it's un-American to criticize the actions of the Trump administration. I think it's my patriotic duty to challenge the policies of the Trump administration. So there can't be a continuing blank check when the Netanyahu government is operating in violation of American law, which they have repeatedly, or in violation of international law. And by the way, I put forward months and months ago a proposal that said, with respect to any country that receives U.S. military assistance has to agree to, number one, comply by American law and by international law. One standard for everybody. No double standards. You know who came out against that? AIPAC came out against that. AIPAC came out against a proposal that says American taxpayer dollars that are used for military assistance, it's okay to give them to any country in the world, even if that country doesn't agree to abide by American law or international law. I will tell you that AIPAC may call itself pro-American, they may call themselves pro-Israel, but they are neither. They have been a very destructive influence. And it's time to call them out, and the American people are catching on. So let me close again by thanking you, because J Street is not a finger in the wind organization. You have guiding principles. You have a North Star. The winds may blow this way and they may blow that way, but we have to keep our eye on that North Star. That North Star is peace in the Middle East. That North Star is a homeland for the Jewish people, a democratic homeland in the state of Israel. That North Star is making sure that Palestinians also have the right to self-determination in that region, in the state of Palestine. That is the North Star. And everything we do as the United States government and all of us gathered here in this room needs to be focused on those principles. America is not perfect. I grew up in a Foreign Service family. I was proud to do so. And people from around the world looked at America as a beacon for freedom and human rights, and the strength of that message was it was universal. We didn't say we're only going to apply those values or principles to this country or that country. We're going to apply it worldwide. And we don't do it perfectly. We never have. But that has always been what we've stood for. This administration is tearing that up. This administration has people like Rubio and Vance talking about not principles, but blood and soil at the Munich conference. So this is really a moment for all of us to stand up and use every power at our disposal, every legal, peaceful power at our disposal, to both save our democracy here at home and to advance the important vision that J Street has always had for the Middle East. Thank you very much, J Street.
Thank you for joining us. Please proceed to the ballroom foyer to pick up your lunch.
البيت